Hey there, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm actually really excited to share this episode with you because I want to talk about things that are scary, right? And I want to share today with you my personal story and my personal journey with actually launching this podcast, because launching this podcast was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. And I really want to share about it because at some point as an entrepreneur, small business owner, whether you're launching a new product, a podcast, a course, a membership, there's a good chance that you may experience these same things. And I just really want to share with you my journey, the things that have happened and how I overcame it and how I'm now on the other side and so excited to be here. Like, I can't even stand it, but it wasn't all that way. So let's back up a little bit. Long story short, in 2019, I set out and I said I was going to launch this podcast, launch a podcast. It had a different name, it had a different theme and everything else, but I did all the things. I got guests lined up, I had artwork made, I bought music, I started looking into all the different platforms, I was picking people's brains, I was doing all the things, right? And then I don't know, I allowed the technology to overwhelm me. I was talking about it. But the reality is I wasn't taking action, right? There's a difference between talking about something and actually taking action on it, all right? And so all of 2019 and probably the first quarter of 2020, all I did was talk about it. And then I started to do something and I allowed the technology to overwhelm me. I don't want to be editing these podcasts. I don't have the resources to outsource this. It's not something I want to do. And long story short, I just gave up. I allowed the excuses to take over and I convinced myself this was not what I wanted to do. And so I didn't. And then at the end of 2020, I had some shifts happen. I'm not going to get into all of them, but just some realizations that made me realize, like, wow, Michelle, you're completely overthinking this podcast thing and you need to just do it. Okay. So that's what I decided I was going to do. In 2020, I said, I'm going to launch this podcast. Started talking to some friends and started recording some episodes, shared with them my vision for it. And we came up with a name. Actually, a good friend of mine came up with the name. She was just in conversation. And I said, yes, that's it. That's exactly what it is. It's going to be strategy in these little small doses. And so I started recording more episodes and I bought, new equipment and different things. And then I was still feeling overwhelmed and I thought, you're procrastinating again, you're not going to do this. And so a mentor of mine a couple of years back, Jordan Adler, said, if you want to do something, put a date on the calendar. Put a date on the calendar because you're more apt to actually continue it or do it or follow through on it if there's a date on the calendar. And so one day I decided, you know what? You're never going to get this podcast launched if you don't get that date down. So I did, picked a date. And I just randomly picked a date. I looked at my calendar. What was important to me, one of the excuses I knew would come up for me was if I could stay on top of it. Okay. And so I picked a date that was a little bit further out. It was probably like 6 to 8 weeks out at that time. Because I knew that I wanted to have a really good backlog built up of episodes so that I could stay ahead of the game. Because one of the things that has always come up is when you're in that reactive state and you're behind the 8 ball, that's when you start to give up, right? So I picked a date, it was 2/22. And that Friday on a social media post, I announced it that I was launching my podcast, that I had a date picked and it was going to happen. Oh my God. I had no idea what was going to happen to me after that. And I immediately started panicking. It was public. I put it out there to the world. I shared it with everybody that I was going to do this. And now what? And I started having anxiety attacks. I was miserable. I started questioning everything. All these thoughts came up of who would listen to that? What happens when you get a negative review? What if people think it's too wordy? What if people don't follow your message? But the reality is, what was really scary is what happens if people love it? What happens if people start sharing it? What happens if you start getting attention from an audience you don't know? And that fear of success hit me hard. And so what comes with that is excuses. And so I had all these excuses why things weren't moving forward. Okay. And I was reading the book, The Big Leap. If you've not read it, everybody needs to read it. And he calls it the upper limiting problem. And I realized that's exactly what I was doing. I was upper limiting myself. And basically that's when everything's going right and things are happy and life is good. you self-sabotage. And so that's what we do. It's upper limit. Like, we're not worthy of it. Okay. And so I spent like the whole following weekend just sitting with my feelings, sharing them with like basically anybody that would listen. And I just really became aware of my own self-sabotaging behavior and realized, like, you're straight up procrastinating on this. And so that Monday, I took action, because what's the opposite of procrastination is action. And I knew what I needed to do. I just wasn't doing it. And so I knew that the technology was going to continue to overwhelm me. So I hired a team. I hired a team of experts to manage the podcast. I hired a copywriter, a web designer to get my website prepped and ready. And everything started falling into place. And guess what? Am I still scared? Was I still scared? Absolutely. Even as I'm recording this episode, I'm still scared. But your mind is what's playing those games on you. It's your mind. The reality is, not one person that I told this to was saying, oh yeah, you're right, Michelle, that's going to suck. Nobody's going to listen to it. Or you're never going to be able to handle that level of success. Nobody says those things, right? Your own internal voice is the only one that plays those games with you. So here's what I want you to do if you're finding yourself in a similar situation, okay? Number one is sit with those feelings and become aware of them. Are those thoughts in your head your own limiting beliefs and your own fears of success? Just become aware of them. Number two, take action. Stop talking, take action. Get a list and start making lists of all the things that need to be done and just start taking an action. Put the date on the calendar. That's action number one. And I promise you, when you start taking action, you're going to get a different level of feelings, okay? Honor the feelings. Number three, the most important, is honor the feelings and know that you're not alone, all right? Talk about them. Share them with your closest peers. Get it off your chest, but know that it's okay to sit with them too. Just sit with those feelings. Number four, if you're into it, meditate. That really helped me. I have done so much meditating during this launch process. It's been crazy, but I promise it's some things really come up during meditation because you have your time to, like, your mind to just allow it to give you the signs and the things that you need to hear. It's been crazy. It's amazing. And number five, like, just have fun. Allow yourself to be excited. Allow yourself to be happy. Allow yourself to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to share this with you. Okay? But most importantly, know that you are not alone. Even the most confident of people truly go through these feelings. It's natural. It brings out a level of vulnerability that you've never experienced. And it pushes you so far out of a comfort zone that you don't know what to do with it, okay? But I promise you, if you can do those five things, if you can sit with it, if you can honor it, if you can push through it, the results on the other side are so worth it. So thank you for being here. This episode's a little bit longer than 8 minutes. I promise the rest of them will be shorter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And know that I am always here in your corner, cheering you on. And know that I will always be that listening ear. If you don't have anybody else to share those feelings with, share them with me. I will be there because I've been there. I get it. I know what it feels like. And if you just need to vent, I'll be there for that too. All right? So don't let those crazy fears and thoughts keep you from taking action on something you are so passionate about and you know you want to do this in your heart. Okay? I promise. What's on the other side of it is so exciting. Okay? We'll talk soon.